Welcome to the Vault Excel. This is a five-part topic discussion pertaining to Bryan Kohberger, suspect in Idaho 4 slangs. I will be bringing you commentary pertaining to WSU's response to his internship, the gag order that his attorneys are trying to keep in order versus the Gonsalves wanting it to be lifted. DM's BS of now saying to a source that she thought Kohberger was a party goer at the said house. Also, information pertaining to him applying for internship with the police department in Pullman. And last, did Bryan stalk his students? Five-part discussion. There will be a link in the chat if you'd like to join the queen on the panel to give your commentary. If you are in the chat speaking, you will have first rank as far as being on the panel. If you are not in the chat, I would prefer not to have you as a guest. Nothing personal, but I like to give the people in the chat the opportunity to speak. Welcome all new viewers and subscribers. Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to the Vault Excel. And if I do not go live tomorrow, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. The Independent is my first set of information. Thank you. First source. Police have no record of whether Bryan Kohberger was offered an internship position months before Idaho murders. The Independent filed a public records request with the Pullman Police Department earlier this year. The Washington State Police Department that interviewed Bryan Kohberger for an internship months before the Idaho murders has no documentation regarding whether he was offered the position. The Independent filed a public records request with the Pullman Police Department earlier this year, asking for any documents relating to Mr. Kohberger's application for the research assistantship for public safety position. One of the core goals of the request was to determine whether Mr. Kohberger had been offered the position, as the department had previously declined to answer that question. A public records officer responded to the request with 10 documents on Friday, but with a major caveat. The Pullman Police Department does not have any documentation regarding whether or not Mr. Kohberger was chosen for the internship position, the officer stated in an email. Kohberger, 28, is facing 4 murder charges in the brutal slayings of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xander Coronado, and Ethan Chapin in an off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho, on November 13th. He was arrested in Pennsylvania December 30th, and is now being held behind bars in Idaho ahead of his June preliminary hearing. An affidavit for Mr. Kohberger's arrest revealed that he had applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department, which has played a significant role in investigating the murder case. Last month, emails between Mr. Kohberger and then Chief of Pullman Police Department Gary Jenkins showed a brief exchange about the assistantship position for which Mr. Kohberger had applied last April. The documents turned over to the Independent last week show Mr. Kohberger was 1 out of 4 applicants for the job. Applicants were informed on the 22nd of August whether they were selected for the role, which was created to help support Pullman Police Department through data management and analysis. Mr. Jenkins, who no longer works for the department, told the Independent he had been advised not to comment on the matter when contacted on Monday. Although there is reportedly no email trail on Mr. Kohberger's job offer or rejection by the department, the PhD criminology student at WSU sent an email to Mr. Jenkins following an approximately 45-minute online interview. Mr. Kohberger wrote that it was a great pleasure to meet with you today and share his thoughts and excitement. Mr. Jenkins replied that it was great to meet and talk with you as well. The internship had been previously mentioned by law enforcement in the affidavit for Mr. Kohberger's arrest, released on January 5th. It stated that Mr. Kohberger had written in an essay that he had interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. Around the same time that he applied to the internship, Mr. Kohberger also carried out a research project to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. He reached out to Redditors with the chilling survey resurfacing after his arrest on December 30th. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience, the post said. Mr. Kohberger applied to the position at Pullman PD before starting his semester at WSU last fall. He went on to work as a teaching assistant in the criminology department in August as part of his graduate program. It has since emerged that within a month, he was already under investigation by the university because of behavioral problems and a sexist attitude towards women, according to News Nation. The outlet obtained a detailed timeline of his issues in the department, revealing that Kohberger was warned multiple times about his behavior and was brought into several meetings with professors due to their concerns. His attitude towards women was cited as a key concern, with the criminal justice student allegedly being rude to women, grading the women that he taught differently to the men, and having a sexist attitude towards females he interacted with at the school. In his brief 4-month stint as a teaching assistant, Kohberger also reportedly got into multiple altercations with one of the professors, Professor John Snyder. On December 19th, just 11 days before his arrest, Kohberger was ultimately fired from WSU teaching, Post reported News Nation. The suspect, now facing the death penalty for 4 counts of murder, was linked to the murders through DNA found on a knife sheath left behind at the scene, cell phone data, and surveillance video of what prosecutors believe to be his white Hyundai Elantra leaving the scene after the slayings. One of the victim's surviving roommates was also able to partially describe the killer to investigators after she came face to face with him in the aftermath of the murders. In January, police in Washington unsealed search warrants for Mr. Kohberger's apartment in Pullman and his office at Washington State University, WSU. The searches were carried out on the same day that he was taken into police custody in Pennsylvania. The unsealed documents revealed that investigators seized a string of items from his home, including possible human and animal hair strands, a possible glove, items with red and brown stains, and a computer. The murder weapon, a fixed blade knife, was not recovered during the searches, and it is still unclear where it may be. Mr. Kohberger is next scheduled to appear in court June 26 for his preliminary hearing. Just to recap what I've read, Independent UK is the source. The police have no record of whether Bryan was offered an internship position or not to Pullman. So far, we haven't heard from anyone. Naturally, you would think by now you would have heard some type of information. The Independent filed public records requests with the Pullman Police Department earlier this year, asking for any documents relating to Mr. Kohberger's application for this research assistantship for public safety position. It says one of the core goals of the request was to determine whether Mr. Kohberger had been offered the position, as the department had previously declined to answer that question. Okay. A public records officer responded to the request with 10 documents on Friday, but with a major caveat. The Pullman Police Department does not have any documentation regarding whether or not Kohberger was chosen for the internship position, the officer stated in an email. That's my first source pertaining to Kohberger and the internship. Q13 Fox is source number 2 pertaining to WSU's response to Kohberger being fired. Thank you for joining me. Bryan Kohberger is no longer enrolled at or employed by Washington State University, where he was studying for a PhD in criminology, as he sits in an Idaho jail cell facing murder charges and the stabbing deaths of 4 undergrads. Mr. Kohberger does not currently have a teaching assistantship, and he is not currently enrolled at WSU, said Phil Weiler, the school's vice president of marketing and communications. But he used to, before police allege he ambushed a group of students at a house in Moscow, Idaho, just a few miles away from WSU campus. Mr. Kohberger received an appointment as a teaching assistant at Washington State University during the fall of 2022 semester. Weiler explained. It is typical for students to receive a teaching assistantship or similar appointment as part of their PhD program. So if you did not know that, that is new information to you and also to myself. Kohberger previously had a graduate student office in the Wilson Short Hall building, and as part of his studies was working as a teaching assistant. In response to a report of a letter stating Kohberger was fired after a meeting December 19th, Weiler declined to go into specifics about the timing, citing the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which protects student records from public disclosure. WSU has not publicly released any information regarding Mr. Kohberger's experience as a teaching assistant, Weiler said. Former students have said he seemed preoccupied after the slangs and became an easier grader. Very interesting information. So, did he become lax in his behavior of being, a demented grader, sexist person because he had got his aggression out by killing these kids? So now that he's killed these kids, he's somewhat subdued. Very interesting information. After those murders that took place in Moscow, Idaho, he continued his classes and finished out the semester as both a student and TA. Mid-December, with investigators looking for evidence against him, he drove home to Pennsylvania. On the way, December 15th, police body cam video shows officers stopped him twice in Indiana. According to court documents, Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra was recorded on surveillance video in his hometown of Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on December 16th. 2 weeks later, a tactical team involving state police and the FBI arrested him at his parents' house. Okay. Police had been seeking the same Elantra after they said they could place it at a King Road house in Moscow, Idaho, where the murders took place early November 13th. So now we can say that not just data, DNA on a knife sheath, audio sounds from a neighboring house, but also surveillance puts Kohberger at the residence. So that means someone had surveillance of him. That is why you have that timestamp of 4:04 a.m. In the affidavit. A review of footage from multiple videos obtained from King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1 starting at 3:29 a.m. and ending at 4:20. Repeat. Footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood cites vehicle 1, suspect vehicle 1, 3:29 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. Moscow Police Corporal Brent Payne wrote in the probable cause affidavit, these sightings show suspect vehicle 1 makes an initial 3 passes by 1122 King Road residents and then leaves via Walenta Drive. On the 4th pass at 4:04 a.m., the car was seen making an awkward parking attempt and a 3-point turn in front of the house, according to the filing. Minutes later, a neighbor's security camera picked up sounds of a struggle, barking dog, voices or a whimper, and a loud thud. 4:20 a.m. By 4:20 a.m., police said video showed the car speeding away from the house. Surviving housemate told police she saw a masked man with bushy eyebrows making his way out through a rear sliding door. She described him as 5 feet 10 inches taller, athletically built, but not muscular. Kohberger is being held without bail at the Latau County Jail for counts of first-degree murder, burglary charge. He's due back in court June 26. You need verification for this source. Q13 Fox. So here we get the information of sightings of Kohberger via video surveillance. Video and audio, thud, whimper, barking dog, thud, voices. Making the 3-point turn in front of the drive. Only a fool would take their car to the scene on the morning of the offenses. Also being there beforehand. Also returning same morning, hours later. To do what exactly? Very interesting. All this information is inside of the affidavit if you need verifications for the said information. Very, very, very interesting. So once again, this commentary by Q13 is basically speaking of WSU responding that he was a student there. He was also a teaching assistant, but they cannot give you specifics of his role there, I guess, as a student and teacher's assistant for privacy issues. So now you have to ask the ultimate question: who released the information to the public of his behavior as a teacher's assistant, being sexist, grading the women harshly, being subdued after the murders, and him being fired? Who released that information? Because my understanding is not protocol for the school to release any information, personal information such as what was detailed by a source of him being fired, his behavior, him being reprimanded, him having meetings with professors. Naturally, they would not release that. So who is the little birdie that sent off that information to the public? And will they have to reprimand himself or herself if it's ever found out that they released information that they were not supposed to release to the public? And naturally, in the past couple of weeks, that's all we have been hearing is a little bit of this, a little bit of that, things about the victims, the crime scene, who said what, who was in the house, who made a phone call. Now we're getting new information pertaining to Dylan downplaying the situation of seeing Kohberger as a party guest. We're now getting information she yelled at the young ladies in the house to keep it down, things that were not mentioned in the affidavit. So what you have to ask yourself is, one, who are these little birdies that are now singing about all this information to the public? Will it hinder the investigation and court proceedings down the road? Because anything you put out that could put this into a different light pertaining to Kohberger and the evidence against him, it could also get him off. And I don't think people are really realizing this. When you start putting this information out, thirsty some of us are, but we are alive. There's not people fighting for justice for us because we're breathing. So you want a proper case to ensue pertaining to this investigation and trial. You don't want anything to mess up the prosecution's case against Kohberger, if indeed he is the suspect, which I believe he is. And so when you start coming out with different narratives, different versions, it can hinder it, it can hurt it. Because as I have said, and many of you know this, that follow true crime, all it takes is one person to hang a jury. All it takes is for one person to say, I don't think he did it. I believe this, and this. You have a problem. And next you'll be looking at a man walking free who has slaughtered 4 children. For adults, that ain't good. Because I don't think some of you realize that. Imagine him walking free if he did this. For you to believe he did this. Your soul and spirit tells you he did this crime. Imagine him walking free by summer or fall because somebody kept listening to all this garbage and different versions and said, well, maybe he didn't do it. Yeah, I know the evidence looks grainy, dicey, looks like he could have done this. But what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And what about this? All that extra stuff, conspiracies and co-conspirators. And you start adding in extra parties that could have helped, aided, conspired. That's all it takes is for somebody gullible, somebody that wants off the trial, somebody that's ready to go home, somebody that's trying to listen to people go round and round. God forbid they're sequestered. So you all aren't thinking about that. That's what hangs a jury. It's the extra stuff, the extra fluff, the extra gossip, conspiracy theories. That's all it takes is 1 or 2 gullible people to hang a jury. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign began to 129 Cash App. All Super Chat stickers are welcome during the live stream. Q13 Fox was that second source. Thank you all so much for joining me. Bringing you the latest pertaining to Bryan Kohberger. Thank you so much. My movie of the week is The Weekend Away, now playing on Netflix. Very, very good movie. Juicy, juicy, juicy. Please check out Netflix if you have the Netflix app. That is my my movie suggestion for the week. Happy Valentine's Day to the viewing audience. Thank you for your time. So we've now talked about his internship with the police department in Pullman. No verification that he did an internship. I brought you information pertaining to WSU's response to him being fired from the university. They have not given out any details. DM. We're going to talk about her now, Inside Edition. Source number 3. A source who had spoken to the eyewitness told News Nation host Ashley Banfield that the eyewitness, who was one of the 2 surviving roommates living in the home, even yelled at her roommates to keep noise down. The eyewitness, who allegedly saw Bryan Kohberger leaving the victim's home on the night of the University of Idaho murders, assumed he was a party guest, according to a new report. The same eyewitness assumed that the noises she heard that evening were just the sounds of her roommates partying, News Nation reported. A source who had spoken to the eyewitness told News Nation host Ashley Banfield that the eyewitness, who was one of the 2 surviving roommates living in the home, even yelled at her roommates to keep the noise down. She allegedly yelled, "Calm down, you're being loud, and I'm trying to sleep," after opening her door, the source told the network. The source also said that when the eyewitness opened the bedroom door and saw a mystery man, who authorities now believe was Kohberger, she did nothing because she assumed he had been a guest of her roommates. 8 hours later, police were called to the house, where they discovered the bodies of Madison Logan, 21, Kaylee Gonzalez, 21, Xana, 20, and Ethan, 20. The details of the new report are notably different than the details shared in the probable cause affidavit last month. That probable cause affidavit also differed from the initial account the Mount Sky Police Department provided to the public in the wake of the murders on November 13th. Authorities initially said that the 2 women who survived the brutal murders had been asleep at the time. That claim was made for the first time 1 week after the murders and then reiterated for the next month in the daily updates provided to the public and press by MPD. The MPD update for November 20th read, detectives believe that on November 12th, the 2 surviving roommates had also been out in the Mount Scout community separately, but returned home by 1 a.m. on November 13th. The 2 did not wake up until later that morning. Those daily updates ceased after the arrest of Kohberger, but days after his arrest, a different version of events emerged in the probable cause affidavit. In that affidavit, Corporal Brett Payne of the MPD said, for the first time, that one of the roommates had not only been awake during the murder, but also witnessed the suspected killer exiting the home. DM stated she opened her door for the 3rd time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her, Payne said in the affidavit. Furthermore, the roommate provided police with a physical description of the man. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built, with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen, shock phase. Please remember those words from here on out up until trial. Her words, frozen, shock phase, quote unquote. Now we have a new version. I didn't do anything because I thought he was here to party. Okay, DM. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in a room after seeing the male. She did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Payne said that in the affidavit that he responded to the scene after one of the roommates called 911. That call came in just before noon, said the affidavit, almost 8 hours after the murders. A source previously told Inside Edition Digital that the two surviving roommates called Chapin's two siblings to the home before calling police. The two were able, hold on, wait a minute, jumping screen, sorry about that. Called Chapin's two siblings to the home before calling police. The two were able to arrive at the scene quickly since they attend University of Idaho, which I didn't know that they called them before the police. I thought maybe they were called afterwards. Now we're getting new information here. Kohberger, 28, is currently being held in the Latau County Detention Center in Idaho. He is facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. He will enter a formal plea to those charges when he appears in court this June for his preliminary hearing. A public defender assigned to Kohberger's case after his arrest in Pennsylvania said that Kohberger maintained his innocence and expected to be exonerated of all charges. Inside Edition is my last source. So we get a little more information. Same that we had heard before, the affidavit of a shock phase of seeing this guy walk by. Now it's a source going to the news to say, I've talked to her, DM, and she yelled at these kids that night to keep the noise down. And when she saw this guy walk by towards her, however, she thought he was a guest of one of the kids. So that really makes no sense. And I'm going to chop that up before I drop the link. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to know, who is this person speaking to? Ashley Banfield or her associates at News Nation? I'd like to know your motivation for going to News Nation. I would like to know your motivation for bringing out this information that contradicts the affidavit. You had to have heard the information in the affidavit is to be of your so-called friend, associate, Dylan. So why in God's name would you come out and give out information that contradicts what she has said in an affidavit? You have got to be the stupidest MF breathing. You almost want Kohberger to go free. Hell, why didn't they just open the gates and let him out? How about that? Why are you doing this? This is why the defense and the prosecution don't want the gag order lifted so Goncalves and his family can speak. We'll talk about that through here too. You all are doing too much. You keep acting like you care so much about these kids. You care so much about truth and you care so much about justice. You couldn't possibly care about the truth because you are bending the truth. You're switching the truth around. You know why you're doing it? Because this girl obviously feels some type of way because people are talking about her. People think she has something to do with the crime. Some people think she knows Kohberger. Some people think she conspired with Kohberger. I have no information that she's done either of those things. I just believe her behavior is questionable. And you can't say how you would react during a crime. Well, if she didn't know there was a crime committed, then you can't say she behaved in a certain way. This is not actually saying, I'm watching you be stabbed to death and I stood and did nothing. It's not what she said. It's not what she said. So which is it? You saw something or you didn't? You heard something or you didn't? You can't be in a shock phase and now switch it around like, well, see, I yelled at them, but I didn't put that in the affidavit. So did you tell the cops you yelled at the kids? Number one, if you told the cops this, why isn't it in this affidavit, Dylan? Why do you have this person running the News Nation? Did you know this person was going to go to News Nation? Let's ask that question. Are you trying to change the narrative because you feel like you're public enemy number one on YouTube and social media? You feel like you're being berated and judged because of your actions? Well, that's the gist of the story. We didn't know any more than what they gave us. So had you not said these things, we wouldn't have nothing to judge. This is why I tell people, don't get mad at what people are saying about you in the street if you gave them something to talk about. Because it's one thing for people to just make up stuff, gossip about you. But when you aid in the gossip, you don't have anybody to blame but yourself. So Dylan, you're angry with whom? Yourself? You're angry at what? You're alive? You're angry at what? You were there? You're angry at what? You didn't do anything? You're angry because you didn't call the fucking police? You know who's mad? Those dead people. But they can't tell us anything because they're dead. How about that? They can't tell us nothing. The crime scene has got to talk to the detectives and the district attorney. Their wounds will talk to the detectives and the district attorney and the 12 members of the jury. See, you're lucky. You're breathing. You and your little friend. You can go run, go to Starbucks, party, do whatever the hell you want to do. But your friends, they don't have that option anymore. So I think you are doing damage control. You're changing the narrative. You're using somebody to go to the public to change the narrative. Because isn't that what you did in the beginning, ma'am? You used somebody months ago before we even knew who Kohberger was. The same person that spun that bullshit about the call and you all outside and somebody fell on the ground and somebody was incoherent and people ran up. Well, we now know that's a lie. Nobody ran anywhere. Nobody ran up to you outside because this never took place outside. So why did you all lie about that? Now we find out that all this took place inside. Now we have this report from Inside Edition that you all called their brothers before calling 911. Who does that? Why are you calling all these people? Hey, I think your brother's dead. Hey, I think your brother's girlfriend's dead. You want to come over? And then yet some of you want to sit here and tell us what we should and shouldn't say about somebody's behavior. Even after the fact, this shit sounds messed up. I'm not getting ready to walk around my house and see my company or people dead in my house and start calling everybody and their damn mama. Get ready to call the damn police. And I think I'm going to run my ass out of my house because I don't know who the hell else is in there. So whether you want to judge it as sorority amnesia, fraternity amnesia, young and dumb, X-generational curse, grow up. You're making yourselves look suspicious because this is even worse. Now we hear you call family members over after seeing a bloody scene. So this is why now it's even worse because now we got to ask, how many people were in the house with the dead people? Did you touch anything? Did you touch the victims? Did you try to give them CPR? Did you touch door handles? Did you have to push a door open? Close a door? Step over somebody? Where were the bodies placed in the room? Xana and Ethan. Could you see one? Not see one? Placement of the bed. Was a victim lying in a place around the bed where you couldn't see from the door? See, you all, oh man. You don't get it. You don't even get what you've done. You've tainted everything. Because now we got to pray that none of your fingerprints are on anything vital in the house, in the crime scene. That's why we want to hear the 911 call. Because I want to hear who touched who. I want to know if doors open, doors closed to the bedrooms. You step in the room or you stood and looked in the room. Did you touch the victims? Did you try to administer CPR? Did you try to take a pulse? How many of you are actually in the damn house with these dead people? Because I thought it was one person that supposed to have came up to the house. But then I knew something didn't sound right with that because we heard it was several people standing up talking to a person passed out and one person incoherent. Now we hear that all this took place inside. The captain told us that, hey, the call came from inside. Can't tell you who it was that called, but they used one of the survivors' phone. Now we're getting several people are in the house. Ever evolving diversion. Now we got somebody running the News Nation close to Dylan. Hey, she thought it was a party guest, but yet her words said she was frozen shocked. So were you frozen shocked because you weren't expecting to see somebody coming around the corner? Frozen shocked because he had a mask on and you're not used to seeing people with masks on? Or frozen shocked because you weren't expecting to see somebody and you also fear for your safety because of the noises that you heard beforehand? So which is it? Frozen shock from fear of something that went down. Now he's walking by my face. Or frozen shock, you just weren't expecting to see somebody in the house. Well, which is it, Dylan? Because you are now helping Kohberger. Did you not know that? Did you not realize that this new narrative of whoever this is speaking up on your behalf, I do not know if this person knows you. You sent them to News Nation. You're in cahoots with this person. I won't doubt it's the same person that was spinning this bullshit out day one to social media. But it looks bad because it contradicts the affidavit, which are your words, allegedly. And whoever this guy running around YouTube speaking, acting as if he's speaking on your behalf, is BS. Because basically he's throwing you under the bus and he's also rooting for you in the same breath. Implicating the FBI, law enforcement, aided you in these words. But then the next comment is, well, she got a lawyer because she felt like they were implicating her. So which is it? Because it can't be both. I do believe you used this person to go to News Nation. I believe you conspired with somebody in the beginning with that first 911 call version of being incoherent and somebody passing out. I do believe you called other people to the house when you should not have. I believe you heard more and saw more on the morning of November 13th. I won't doubt you also came outside that room after Kohberger walked out of the house. I won't doubt that you actually saw your friends deceased on either the second floor or the third floor. And you went back in your room and played possum. Because the fact that you called people over to a house with dead people lying around makes no sense to me. And now we have to decide which version we're going to believe pertaining to the discovery of the bodies. Did you already discover the bodies in the AM, number one? Number two, did you discover the bodies in the AM daylight time? Number three, you discovered the bodies and then called somebody to come over. And then that one called somebody and that one called somebody. And we now got a bunch of people standing around with some dead kids in the house. And no EMT and no police called. How does that sound right? So now some of you can get off your high horse talking about what you would do in this situation. What is the situation exactly? Because now she's making it seem like they were having a party. She's yelling at the people to be quiet and he was just a guest. So that means she wasn't in a frozen shock face. That's why she went back to sleep. But yet you open your door 3 times. And you're changing the version, which to me is damage control. You don't like what's being said about you on social media and YouTube. Well, maybe you should have thought about what you put in the report and the fact that eventually it will be released to the general public. The cat is out. So this is what I'm going to say to you, Dylan Mortensen, and your other friend, Bethany Funk. I don't know what you saw and didn't see in that house, but something smells awfully fishy to me now after the fact, February 2023. The different versions, your source coming out, contradicting the affidavit, which is supposed to be your words to law enforcement. Hearing that other people were in the house before 911 was called. Now hearing that the call never took place outside, but inside with other witnesses. And using a mouthpiece to go to News Nation. So anybody that still wants to sit up and brag and condone your behavior that's on you. But I'm not a dodo bird, and I know something is off here. Because you're only making yourself look like a fool, that you're trying to now downplay seeing Kohberger as a phantom, scary person. Now he's just a regular old bloke. But yet your words in the affidavit speaks as if maybe you were in fear or shocked to see this person walk by. And one would say, well, she was in shock because of all the stuff that was going on. And now seeing this person maybe put fear in her that, hey, what I've been hearing isn't good. And now this new version coming out of you downplaying seeing him leads me to believe you saw and heard everything in that house on November 13th, early Sunday morning, and you turned a blind eye and shut your door after allegedly opening and closing. How do I know your door wasn't open the whole damn time? I don't know. But why would I believe anything you have to say now? And this is what's going to make some people think you knew Kohberger or conspired with him. Because now we got more information where you're downplaying your own words in an affidavit, police report. And if you knew what you were saying to the police was not the truth, you should not have told them anything. What you should have said is, I slept the entire night until I got up and I opened my door and I saw blood. And then I followed the trail and saw dead bodies. And then I called 911. That's what a person with some sense would have done instead of adding all this extra stuff. Because, see, you've changed your wording if we're to believe this source. Now we're wondering who the source is. Is it your boyfriend, Dylan Mortensen? Is this one of your boy toys talking to the news? Will he or she ever reveal him or herself? Why is he or she talking when there's a gag order, whether they are involved in the case or not? Did it occur to you that what you have now released to the public, if indeed you are in cahoots with this information, it will help Kohberger's case? Checkmate. Last topic for this evening. Kohberger was a teacher's assistant. It is alleged that he had behavioral problems with his professors and his students. He was deemed sexist and graded the females harder. It's also alleged that his behavior changed after the killings of the Idaho Four, that he was more subdued and more lenient in his grading. Did Bryan Kohberger stalk any of the girl students in his classes? Any girls at the school, WSU? Any girls or women in the apartment complex where he resided? And any other women in Moscow, Idaho that were also college students? Thank you for joining me. 5-part topic. Be a part of the discussion. Make the live count. Like, share, subscribe. I will now drop the link if you want to give your opinion about all topics in the title of this video. Thank you for your time. It's very sick information. We also can throw in the Gonsalves wanting this gag order lifted so they can talk. What is it that you all have to say so important? I'm curious. Many of you will probably see the Queen's commentary on said videos pertaining to this subject matter. I do comment often under News Nation, and I'd like to know, what do the Gonsalves have to bring to the table? Why did you hire a lawyer in the first place? I'm going to tell the viewing audience why you all hired a lawyer. You hired a lawyer because you weren't getting your way with the police department, state police, FBI. Well, first of all, they were investigating the murders of your child and her friends. They didn't owe you an explanation to the investigation. They didn't owe you an explanation on who was a suspect. They didn't owe you an explanation of who they thought did it. They didn't owe you an explanation of who they passed and didn't pass, because that was none of your business. They were investigating a crime. They're still investigating the crime, sir, ma'am. family members. You were the only ones to go hire a lawyer. Checkmate. You were the only ones vocal about wanting to talk, but yet you didn't know anything. Checkmate. Only ones hired an attorney. Checkmate. Nobody else complaining about the investigation. Checkmate. Now, after the fact, suspect apprehended, you're still the only ones complaining, wanting your lawyer to speak. Checkmate. Why? What is it that you have to say to the public again about the case when allegedly you don't know anything? You can't verify if the daughter was being stalked or not. You can't verify that she knew Kohberger. You can't verify that he knew her, that they dated. He dated anybody in the house. He was friends with the kids. He hung at the house. He's been in the house. Been to the restaurant. That's been denied by the owner. So if you don't know anything, once again, why do you need to talk to the public? Yes, we know your child was murdered. Well, 3 others were murdered. So to me, it's disrespectful. All the whining and bitching you did in the beginning of this case, as if your child was the only one murdered. And I've said this a few times during my live streams, that it is disrespectful because you centered this case basically around Kaylee Goncalves. And the last time I checked, she did not die alone. She died with her friend in the bed. And there are other kids who died in that house. So show them some respect and show their parents respect. This case is not about Kaylee Goncalves. It is about 4 kids who died brutally on November 13th. And their parents have not been speaking out and going on and hiring lawyers. And you don't hear none of them crying about the gag order. At least to my knowledge, I have not heard that Ethan's family, Xana or Maddie's, have a problem with the gag order being in place. That is to preserve the integrity of the case so Mr. Kohberger can get a fair trial, so he can also get 12 sound-minded people to sit on the jury panel so the prosecution can bring his or her case to the public against Mr. Kohberger, Mr. Goncalves, and family. You also know that you can be called as eyewitnesses to give victim impact statements and information that your daughter told you while living pertaining to having a stalker. Did that not occur to you? And yet you still want this attorney to speak. What in the hell does he have to say? He doesn't know anything. So you want him to relay your thoughts to us. Well, you have done a good job of telling us how you feel. Talking in riddles and talking in circles about Kohberger going upstairs. He didn't have to go upstairs, which made people think that the target was somebody else. But then get the same breath, you were saying that the wounds don't match. So that led people to think that your daughter's wounds were more severe than the other victims. But that's contradictory of the person going up the stairs. So why were you saying all these things and not making it clear what you meant? This is why they tell you you should not speak to the public when you cannot make your commentary clear. And to date, you have never clarified what you meant by those comments. The wounds don't match up. He didn't have to go upstairs. Well, where should he have gone? Most of us will say he should have gone to hell, but that's a whole nother topic. He didn't have to be at the house, period, Mr. Goncalves. Let me rephrase that. He had no right to be there, Mr. Goncalves. He had no right to stalk the children, kill the children. He had no right to be at 1122 King Road, period. Checkmate. They didn't know him, allegedly. Checkmate. He didn't know them. Checkmate. They hadn't done anything to him deliberately. Allegedly. Checkmate. So he had no right to be on the premises, stalking the premises, going into DMs and Messenger. No one responded. So he had no right to be at 1122 King Road. That's the end of the story. Thank you all so much for your time. I will now be putting the link in the chat. If you are in this chat giving your commentary, please feel free to hit the link. We would love to hear from you. We love to hear from people new that have never spoken. You do not have to show yourself, but we would love to hear your commentary on the said topics at hand. Thank you so much. Welcome all new subscribers, new viewers. If you currently watch this network and you comment a lot in the chat and on the community board and below in the videos, I would advise you to subscribe to the channel, because it doesn't really make any sense to constantly comment and not be subscribed to this great network. I'm just saying. Hit the link to give your opinion if you are in the chat. If you have an opinion pertaining to Wsu'S response to his internship, the gag order, the defense is also wanting it to stay in place, DM's BS and new narrative of downplaying Kohberger in the House, and also did Bryan stalk his students at WSU, and also the information pertaining to the police internship. Okay? So, two-part. Internship at WSU, him applying for an internship with Pullman Police Department, the gag order, DM's BS, and did Bryan stalk his students? 5-part discussion during this live stream. Thank you for your time. You are now listening to the Vault XL. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Roses. We will see who our victim will be. Who our victim will be this evening. We're almost an hour into this live stream, so make it worth our while. Give us your opinion. Every information I brought to you, I brought with a source. If you have any problems with the information in this live stream, I advise you to take it up with the source, the Independent Inside Edition. Fox 13 News. It's not my commentary. It is the news' commentary. What I say is of my own opinion. You feel free to agree or disagree. But I was not born yesterday, and I didn't come from underneath a rock. And there's something wrong with this mess with DM. I don't understand why Mr. Gonsalves and his family want to keep talking to the press and need a lawyer to talk to the press. I don't understand why they feel like they need to talk, why they need the attorney. WSU has responded to the internship as the teacher's assistant. They have not elaborated, so that means somebody underhandedly put that information out. Who is that person, and why did they put it out? Gag order, defense, and prosecution are on board with wanting it to stay in place versus the Gonsalveses wanting it to be lifted. Naturally, nobody understands this BS pertaining to DM and its new version being released to the public and News Nation of a source going to them to say she thought Kohberger was a visitor at a party. So now it's a party. And also, did Bryan Kohberger stalk his students? Thank you for joining me. Hello, everybody in the chat. Roses, Tracy, Patricia. Thank you all so much for tuning in. 92 viewing. Movie suggestion of the week. The Weekend Away. Now playing on Netflix. Very good movie. Make sure to put it in your Rolodex. Megan is now being aired on YouTube. You can buy or rent it. They want a little bit of money for it. I'm not willing to give YouTube $20 when I can go to the movie and see it cheaper. I found it yesterday morning. I was kind of stunned. I thought it was going to be a little cheaper, but it's been at the theaters. It just came out in January, so now YouTube has access to bring the movie to the viewing audience. But they want a nice little fee for the movie Megan if you're interested in sci-fi/horror movies. Okay, happy birthday, Tracy's mom. This is the month that my mother was born in as well. All right, pilgrims. Make it worth my while. I'm 1 hour in. If you have an opinion, hit the link. If you are viewing this video and you are in the chat speaking, feel free to join the panel. Give us your opinion. 5 topics at hand pertaining to Kohberger and Dylan and the Gonsalves, WSU students, so on and so forth. If you need to go back to the beginning of this live to get the information, feel free to go to replay. Thank you. Did he stalk any of his students? I've watched commentary of people, experts speaking, that would be in his nature to try to get close to any of the young ladies that he was critiquing, probably ask for their phone number, try to meet with them to study in a study hall or apartment. Imagine that. Meeting with Kohberger alone in a library or his office. God forbid. He would invite them to his apartment or go to theirs, which that would be very unprofessional, to go to your student, your professor's assistant's home or yours. And probably not a good idea to meet him even in the library. No, thank you. We can go into your office, leave the door open, say what you have to say to me. That's the end of the conversation. Now imagine anybody that ever got called by Kohberger privately for a private meeting. Now you know he's a suspect in a quadruple homicide. Patricia says, I think Kaylee's dad is bitter about everything. He just wants to act like it's all about him. Attention grabber. Yes, he lost the kid, but so did the other parents. I agree. He is self-serving. I've put that on several news articles. In the YouTube queue, you'll see the Queen commenting under the Vault Excel. And I do believe that his family is self-serving, the people who have spoken about the case, because he's the only one talking out of the 4 parents. And if you don't have the other parents complaining about law enforcement, the gag order, hiring an attorney, why is it that you're the only one doing the most talking and complaining? Mr. Gonsalves, his wife and daughter, they've been the only ones complaining since this case came to national attention. And they act as if their child was the only child murdered. And it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to their child. It's disrespectful to the other children. It's disrespectful to the victims' families. Because all you do is talk about your child. But really, you don't even know anything. Because what we've seen thus far is that you all really had no idea what the hell was going on at 1122 King Road. You don't know what your children were doing. You don't know what their friends were doing. You don't know who they were interacting with. You don't know who's been in that house. And that's another thing. Other DNA inside of that house. Touch DNA on banisters, walls, the slider door, going in, going out. People's fingerprints on the sink knobs, door handles. There's probably 1,001 fingerprints in that house because I'm sure the girls didn't dust every little nook and cranny of this apartment house. And that would just be, like I said, a needle in a haystack trying to find a fingerprint that is going to be also linked into the blood, the crime scene. Probably thousands of fingerprints in that house. God knows where. Over here, over there, lampshade, light fixture, anything. You'd be chasing all kind of people around with fingerprints. But it's Mr. Kohberger's DNA that's on the knife sheath with the missing knife. Where is the knife? It's a very interesting case. I just pray that everything goes to plan in June. That there's no holdups, there's no pushing the case back, because this will be disturbing to go into the summer of 2023, and there's some more shenanigans jumping out to where the case doesn't go to trial in the month of July. You're still talking about almost the end of June. So you're really talking about July. So I pray that nothing else jumps off, nothing crazy jumps off, that this trial goes forward, because these children deserve justice. The community deserves justice. Their parents deserve justice. And this is just scary. And for those of you who follow the Queen, I brought you commentary the other night pertaining to a WSU international student who had someone try to force his way into her apartment. And also someone has been peeping into homes in the College Hill area, which I do not know the proximity of that area to where this incident took place, because they did not give a location of this girl's apartment. But she's given a description to authorities. I did not go back into research today to see if there's any more information pertaining to the description. But what I do find strange is she goes to Facebook to put this information out, but she didn't say if he was black, white, Hispanic, what his nationality is, which is strange to me. I would suspect a person would say he was a black male, Hispanic, or white, or I don't know. I just think that was interesting. So please check out my video on that pertaining to a WSU student who had someone try to force his way into her house, her apartment. And also there's a peeper walking around Pullman, Washington as well, besides the guy who tried to break into this girl's apartment. So now we're talking about double threat besides Kohberger, who was there. That's triple threat. Do we now have people trying to emulate Kohberger or act out their fantasies? Kohberger's locked up. Let me come on out. Let me come out of my shell. Let me roar. The world needs to see I'm also a sadist. I'm a sicko, wacko. Now I want to start pushing my way into young women's apartments. Did he know the girl? Did he been watching her? She said she didn't know him. So parked outside her house, car running, trunk up, means he was up to some nasty business and possibly had followed her, knew where she lived, and was already waiting for her to return home. Knew she rode the bus, did not drive a car. This is very scary information I'm bringing to you. And the fact that it happened to a student from this university, international student, I believe also she's a grad student, this is bad. This is real bad. We have a grad student that's a killer, allegedly. Now we have a grad student trying to keep somebody from breaking into her apartment. Hello, Joelle. Thank you for joining me, sweetheart. This is bad news, man. This is bad. But the point is, it doesn't matter the location, small town, rural town, country, farmland. People are demented. People are wackos, sickos, sadists. You cannot say where crime will happen. People are assaulted every day in all types of jurisdictions. People are murdered every day. People are plotted against. Mayhem is everywhere. There's no such thing as murder didn't happen here. Murder don't happen here. Murder will happen wherever. But you don't know people. And unfortunately, 4 children had to find out the hard way about how deviant the world is. And this is a lesson learned that you need to be aware of your faculties. You need to keep all car doors locked. You need to keep your doors locked, your windows locked. You need to be careful about what you post to social media, putting your government name on your profiles, TikTok, IG, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, date sites. Nobody needs to know your damn government name. The only person that you should care to know your government name is number 1, your employer. Number 2, the bank, the driver license department, and the damn IRS. Anybody else, I wouldn't care. I would not care. I mean, some people are just so free to tell everything, every emotion, every, hi, Facebook, this is what happened today, and I'm feeling bad today, and I can't believe what Pookie did, and you got your name up there, your workplace, the city where you live in, as I said, the only thing that people don't have is a key to your front door. You've got to be aware of your faculties. You have got to be aware of your surroundings. You've got to be aware of the things you're posting. You don't know people. You cannot assume that somebody will not go somewhere and sit and watch you because you're going live somewhere. Follow you home. God forbid you're in a car. You're not looking in the drive-through window. You're not looking to see who's sitting in the parking lot. You don't know if they follow you from over here to over there. You have to be aware. And people can befriend you, and you actually start talking to him or her through social media sites or in public, and you could just think nothing of it. Just, oh, hi, how are you? Hi, what's your name? And next thing you know, you're giving them your phone number, this and that, or your app information, how to, talk to you on Messenger or IG, whatever, and you don't know you could have invited the enemy in. They could have been watching you the whole time and just happened to bump into you on purpose, and you follow through and talk and give out personal information. You don't know people. And I do not believe you need to be telling people where you live. It does not matter if you live in a small town or not. If a person asks you, where do you live, the exact location, do not tell them. That is none of their business. You do not owe people explanation where you live. And people here in the South got that bad of telling people where they stay. You've got to stop doing that. You have no business telling people where you live. Well, I guess nobody wants to join the Queen this evening. That's all I really have to say pertaining to the said information. Basically, just repeating yourself over and over. Because this case has now become a mockery. Off the backs of 4 dead kids. And the sick part is it's their own friend doing it to them. It's bad enough you didn't call the police, and now you've got this extra shenanigans going on, which I believe Dylan is behind this extra BS. She's just stabbing her friends in the back, in death. And that's my general synopsis of this case. Stabbing them in the back after death. You ignored everything while they're being stabbed and screaming and hollering. And I refuse to believe that all these kids died silently in this house because you put it in the affidavit. You heard whimpering, crying. There's audio of crying, whimpering, dog barking, thud. So naturally what was going on in the house would be much louder than someone's audio from their camera 50 feet away. You turned a blind eye. And now you're stabbing your friends in the back more with this bullshit of Kohberger being a party goer. You didn't think no more of it, but yet the affidavit says different. Nowhere in the affidavit did you say, hey, I told them to be quiet. Nowhere in the affidavit did you say you yelled or screamed. If so, it's redacted. Let me put it that way. So let me ask that question. This new information that she screamed at the girls to quiet down, is this in the affidavit or police report, but was redacted? And if so, why? Before we make any accusations against Dylan Mortensen. And who is this person speaking to News Nation? Why are they speaking on your behalf once again? Did you send the person to News Nation, Dylan? Dylan, are you trying to do damage control because you feel guilty about what happened in that house because you knew you did not call 911 when you should have? You knew you should have invited all those people over the next morning after the bodies were discovered. So now we have to ask the ultimate question. Who did you call the first time? 1, 2, 3. How many people did you call initially? And why did you call them over to the house? Did you call them because you did find the kids dead and you were scared, which makes no sense? Or you felt fearful, frozen shock from earlier and knew something was wrong that morning still, afraid to come out of your room, so you called Pookie, Ray, Bubba to come over. I'm confused. And when the Queen starts getting confused or irritated with information, that's usually a sign that there's some bullshit. And I get this inkling from people often. That should tell you something about the Queen. That obviously the people that she's been talking to, they're all full of shit. It's kind of like the mob. What he said, you just keep pulling me back in. Everybody you meet now just got a lot of games to play. And one thing I've learned about games is that you can't play unless you're a willing participant. Well, Patricia, we will see if they have other footprints, because something about this is worse than we thought. If she called his family members over, why are you calling all these random people and not 911? What are they going to do with a dead body? Nobody can tell me that what I'm saying is not right, because I know right from wrong. What I choose to do is my decision, but I know right from wrong. And nobody's going to tell me it was right to call those people over to that house if indeed you found those kids dead. And you can't say passed out, because you would have seen blood. One person allegedly fingers were damn near severed. One person in that same room supposed to have a neck cut allegedly. So we're past the stage of, hey, I've got a person passed out here on the floor. Nah, you got something else going on. And there ain't no telling what those girls look like up there on the third floor. We're not even getting ready to picture that. What Kaylee and Maddie look like. This is bullshit, man. You can keep upholding Bethany, Dylan if you want. That is your choice. But I don't have to agree, because I didn't get the 52 by mistake. You see, I listened. That's something I've learned to do more now. I listen first before I form an opinion. Even if my mind is telling me something is not right, I still continue to listen. See, a lot of you don't want to listen because you bring your own personal problems into the story, and you want to start comparing your life to the kids and what you went through. That's not how you get to the truth. You get to the truth by listening to the information. And now that the information has been revealed, we now have other people coming out contradicting what the main person in the story has been spinning to law enforcement. So now we have to wait to see who's going to now tell us that this new information of frozen shock phase versus party scene, party goer Kohberger is in the affidavit and it was retracted. I don't understand what's going on. This is bad. This is so bad. Oh, Lordy. All I can say is this, and I said this, and obviously my spirit is right, and it's been right. It never sounded right to me the first time the person went to social media with the person passed out and the 911 and people grabbing the phone and calling. My spirit told me then something was off. Now, months later, what was said in the affidavit is now being contradicted by the same person that gave the information in the affidavit via her source and obviously herself. If we're to believe this source is telling the truth of what Dylan told him or her. You also have to ask the motivation behind the source. Why are you coming forward with this? Because if you're the same guy that's running around on YouTube talking in an audio and you sound doped up, you've thrown her under the bus, and you've also made her out to be a liar, and also implicated that the police doctored her statements. So now you are belittling the police department, the FBI, and the state police. And I don't think they'll like that too well. Well, allegedly she didn't get up. But see, that's a whole other arena as well. If we're to believe she's not traumatized, if we're to believe she's not PTSD, if we're to believe she's giddy and laughing and everything's a joke, then you have to ask yourself, what is the truth to what was said in the affidavit? Did she lie about the events in what she saw and heard November 13th? And that takes you back to my initial complaint. Did this girl walk out of her room and see the carnage on the second floor, third floor, and went back to her room and made up all this cockamamie bullshit hours later? Because if you'll lie about one thing, you'll lie about another. And now that we have this alleged source talking to a major news network, we have to ask ourselves, who is the source? What is his or her motivation? Are they speaking on behalf of Dylan? Is this the same person that put out that rumor in the beginning of the 911 call? And is she trying to change the narrative because she's trying to do damage control of what people are saying about her on social media and YouTube? She doesn't like the nasty videos. She doesn't like the implications that she's involved, that she knows Kohberger. They conspired. She abandoned her friends. Is this damage control? That's the set information. I'm not going to hold you all. I thank you for your time. I'm tired of talking about this case because it is becoming like all the other cases that I cover, a bunch of gossip and made up stuff and rumors. And I'm going to say this to some people who really need to hear it. I don't know what some of you all's problems are when it comes to true crime, why you like to make up stuff, past rumors that you hear and past things that you know is not true, that you don't have a receipt to. You become, angry because nobody wants to listen at that shit and ride with you. Well, I don't have to. I don't believe half the stuff I hear from people that stand in front of me and talk. So there's no way I'm going to sit here and listen to people who sit in chats and news articles and type under, fake ass usernames and profiles. Why would I do that? I don't trust half of the people on YouTube that speak Facebook either, because I know that most of these people are self-serving and like attention. And they're just making up shit for content because they don't have anything better to do. You want to follow that type of rhetoric, you are entitled to your opinion, but I don't rock like that. And this case will go terribly awry with what has happened recently with all this recent gossip and making up of stuff. Because as I said before at the beginning of this live stream, this man is on trial for his life. He is possibly facing the death penalty. His attorney will do whatever he or she has to do to get him off. You all keep passing these rumors. Dylan keeps making up stuff, getting people to lie on her behalf and spin webs to News Nation. Kohberger will walk. Let me make that clear. Kohberger will walk. Mr. Gonsalves, you and your family want to keep talking to the news, talk about what? God knows. I don't know what it is you want to tell us. You are help aiding Kohberger to get a empathetic jury member, plural. Please listen to what I'm saying. The more you all keep talking, the more you all keep spreading rumors and lies, the more you keep changing the narrative. Dylan, Bethany, whoever's involved in this conspiracy, you are going to help get your friend's killer off. Because you may not like what's being said about you, Dylan, but you put this information in the affidavit. So you have nobody to blame but yourself, because if you felt like what you had to say in the affidavit would cause you problems later down the road, as far as looking as though you ditched your friends, didn't save your friends, you have done more damage now than what you did on November 13th. If you are behind this source going to News Nation, you have made it worse. So in exchange of trying to save your own hide, reputation, you've now thrown your friends under the bus. You have literally stabbed them in the back in death to save your own ass and help Kohberger get off. Checkmate. Please go into my library where I have extensive content on the subject matter and other breaking news and various topics. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for your time. Happy Valentine's Day. You have been listening to The Vault. XL.